The content in this magazine could contain references of topics and difficult subject matter that may be triggering. Please honor yourself, inner knowing, and proceed with whatever help or guidance you feel is intuitively aligned. Welcome to Sovereign Magazine Podcast. I'm Nicole George, CEO and founder of Sovereign. I'm so happy you are here. We are the magazine podcast and community guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves. From heart-led conversations to magical meditations, our inspiring guests will show you how they can help you step into your sovereign self. Are you ready to listen to your inner voice and step into your power? Then keep listening to hear all of the intuitive messages meant for you today. Hello! Today I have the privilege of connecting with Jennifer Meyer, one of our amazing contributors. She is a licensed professional counselor with a deep passion for helping people navigate life's challenges, from the relationships to personal growth and divorce recovery. With nearly 50 years of life experience, she not only has expertise in becoming genuinely compassionate for yourself and others, but she brings a lot of humor and a non-judgmental approach to her work. She's somebody who truly does the work herself and creates a space for herself and her clients where they can show up as their real, vulnerable selves. Welcome, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm honored to have you. We are going to have such a beautiful conversation today around the theme of learning to forgive and forget, which is the theme for our June new moon issue. In your article, Paving the Path to Forgiveness, you go very deeply into your personal life, which most people don't have the ability to do publicly. But you talk about a lot of the hardships, healing, and forgiveness you had to go through after having navigated multiple divorces, raising your children as a single mom, and on top of all of that, switching career paths. You're very open about how your pain has become your greatest teacher. And for those who haven't read your article yet, perhaps we can start there with you sharing a little bit about your story.
Sure. So, one of the biggest things that stands out to me, Nicole, is when I left my kids' dad in 2010. I left on a Friday, moved in with my mother, with my kids, and I started my master's program on the next Monday. And so my master's program was in mental health counseling. And so everything that I learned during that 3.5 year period was filtered through a lens of motherhood and going through some really difficult times divorce-wise with my kids' dad. And it really influenced everything I learned because I was at such a period of challenge and chaos and trying to figure out how to navigate this and be strong for my children. And how might I learn how to do this and help someone else through this in a counseling sense? So,
Yeah, it's really hard to publicly share your personal life. And
mhm.
so, when did you really have the ability, or how did you have the ability to overcome this fear of judgment and embrace the truth of your life and kind of accept that this trajectory was yours to embrace?
Mm. Well, it's interesting because you and your magazine had a big impact on that because I knew that I needed to be genuine and open in the articles that I wrote for you. And so I remember talking to the people in my close inner circle about putting this information out there. And I thought I just need to go for it because to me, the biggest thing is it could help somebody else that's going through this to not feel ashamed. And so in the counseling field, there's a strong emphasis on you're there to show up for clients and your story, you need to keep your story a little bit more private. And I agree with that. And also in the divorce recovery work I do, I think it's important for my clients there to know that I've gone through divorce like they have. I get it firsthand.
Yeah.
So,
That's such a beautiful connection to the fact that you have to identify with your clients and how important it is to really connect with them on a deeper level regarding their healing process, their past, their recovery. And so, as a thriving practitioner, you often have to have your clients share their hardest lessons in their life. And how do you connect that back to learning to forgive, learning to not only be compassionate for themselves, but for others? Like, what does that look like for you in the day to day practice?
Mm. Well, first, I think I want to touch on the fact that it's important to recognize, okay, what is my responsibility, let's say as a client? If I'm coming in as a client who has gone through or is going through a divorce, to figure out what, number one, what is my responsibility in this and what is this other person's responsibility? Because sometimes, especially in my experience, women, we tend to take on more responsibility than we should. And so I think it's really crucial to figure out what's an accurate measure of responsibility. I'm going to take responsibility for my parts, not in a shaming way, but just, yes, this is part of my growth. And this is something that I've done. And I mentioned this in the article. I've chosen some people that have not been good for me. And so that's part of my work. And being able to own that helps me figure out where my work is moving forward. And also, I can put some responsibility on the other person. And I help clients do that.
I love that you use the word responsibility. So, what do you think the difference between radical responsibility is and maybe forgiveness for oneself or even for others? Like, how would
Mm.
you define those for people?
hmm So I love the term radical responsibility. And in that sense, I would say that is taking an honest look at what is my part in this? What have I done that is maybe out of alignment with me and my values? And I'm going to own that. I'm not going to go into shame and secrecy around how bad I am because I've done that, but I'll have some compassion and also take responsibility for my part, because in doing that, it's empowering. It helps us to just see it for what it is. It is what it is. I've done these things or made these poor choices, and I can live with that. And I'm also going to change it moving forward. And so, in the forgiveness piece, the way I see that is all of us are coming to the table with, baggage and wounds from childhood or previous experiences, previous relationships. And so none of us are perfect. And so being able to forgive and just see, you know, I and this other person have shown up very human and haven't maybe necessarily treated each other the best we could. And also, I'm going to let that go, because holding on to that is just keeping me in a stuck and toxic space.
Speaking of stuck in toxic spaces, it's so funny. You went right where I wanted to ask you a question. Why do you think so many people stay stuck? Why do you think so many people choose to stay in these toxic, unhealthy, unaligned relationships? Whether that's even just
Mm.
friendships, it doesn't necessarily have to be a marriage, could just be a friendship, or even in staying in a job that doesn't feel aligned. Like, what do you think makes us stay there? And maybe perhaps maybe what stories we're telling ourselves, like how do we get ourselves out of that thinking and into a more productive, aligned way of living?
That's such a great question. I love that. So I think one of the biggest things that keeps us stuck in those toxic spaces is fear of rocking the boat, perhaps, and making such a big choice that is probably going to upset somebody else, at least one other person, kind of knock over the apple cart, so to speak. You know, Divorce, for example, creates a lot of different changes that are not just about relationship. It's, at least in my experience, okay, I'm going to be moving. I'm going to be moving my children. My children are going to be losing this person from their life. I'm going to be losing this person. There are financial obligations that are sometimes really tough to meet alone. And so, and also maybe I don't want to lose my in laws, Right. So, and friends that have been people that have been around and friends with myself and an ex at the time. And it's going to disturb all of that. And that's terrifying. It's a really huge change. And
Yeah.
also, I think sometimes the benefits of leaving outweigh the costs. And we know when we know.
Yeah. So do you think that there's this push pull relationship between maybe like the status quo, like it maybe isn't that bad, and the fear of starting over and all of that unknown, and, not being able to say, okay, regardless of whether or not you may or may not feel this isn't that bad, it's not aligned for me anymore. And I have to trust that in my highest timeline, all of this is going to, work itself out. There's going to be a ton of chaos, but what clarity comes on the other side?
Hmm. I, yes, absolutely believe in that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid of starting over. And what would you say to somebody who might be in this situation, regardless of whether it's relationship, friendship, or work, who is like, yeah, I really am deeply unhappy and I am afraid of starting over? Acknowledging those two things, you can have both feelings, right? You might want to stay to keep the status quo because it's more safe and more comfortable, and you might want to leave and be fearful of the change and starting over. I love the word and because we don't have to have an either or
Hmm.
situation. I love that word and. So if you're in this and situation where you're want to leave but you want to stay, what would you say to somebody who might want to start over?
Hmm. I think let's say, as the status quo becomes more and more uncomfortable, it's good to kind of dig in and reflect on what are some of the really, really challenging periods that I've gone through that have shown my resilience in the past. And regardless of what this future unknown is going to look like, trusting I'm going to be okay. I don't know what it looks like, and that's terrifying. And also, this is clearly not working if I'm really honest with myself, whether it's a job, relationship. And I think I'd like to make that change. I think I deserve better and something that's more aligned with me and my purpose. And so ultimately looking at it as it's time to make that jump and I'm going to be okay no matter what because I'm strong.
Yes. Yes, I'm strong. So many of us don't trust in ourselves, and we're so afraid to trust our intuition, know that we are stronger than we think, and then we know, and we can impress ourselves sometimes. Are you ready to be part of the movement of guiding 5 million women to their sovereign selves? Are you a woman who trusts her inner voice and is stepping into her power? Then subscribe to Sovereign Magazine, podcast, and community, where you can become part of our global community, because your journey to empowerment starts here. So, this is going to lead me into our new segment, Steps to Your Sovereign Self, where we have our guests really show you what they do on a daily basis rather than just talking to you. And so, Jennifer is going to take you through an exercise. It's called a goodbye letter. And this is going to be your opportunity to look at many different things within yourself and within your relationships, perhaps grief, anger, loss, forgiveness, all these things. And she's going to walk you through how you can process these difficult times in your life so that you can gain that strength within you to move forward, to have change. So I'm going to hand it over to her to walk you through this exercise. So this might be a good time to pause, maybe get a pen, paper, maybe even a cup of tea, light a candle, set the scene for yourself.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, so one of the biggest things that people go through, whether it's leaving a relationship, leaving a career or job that no longer defines them, friendship, any of these things, is it often creates different pieces of the stages of grief. So there's sadness at leaving, let's say for a relationship, there's sadness at leaving this part, for example, I'm going to be leaving a comfortable situation. It's comfortable in some ways because it's predictable. And also, there's anger that goes along with that because this has turned into an untenable situation that's causing me hurt, even if it's a workplace. And so, one thing that's really important is to put words to and be able to release some of these feelings, which are, let's start with grief. So, even in a really difficult situation, work wise, relationship wise, there are still aspects that are sad when we let go of something, even if it has turned really, really toxic. And so, what I encourage people to do is write out, okay, goodbye to all of the time, for example, in a relationship, all of the times that you made me coffee, that you brought me coffee in bed, all of the times that were beautiful or maybe started out beautiful in a job. Goodbye to all of the times that you supported me, that you loved my ideas. And the goal with this part of the goodbye letter is to access those pieces of us that are entangled with grief. And that is a healthy, normal part of this. And so being able to write all of those parts out, really spend the time to one by one think of as many details as you can of the things that you're going to miss about that person, that situation, that job. Okay. And so, in addition to that, I also really encourage people to start writing out goodbye to the negative times, the times where I was mistreated, the times when I went to a job and I wasn't supported, the times that were really negative that are leading me to this decision at this point, because that part is really validating in making the decision. And it's important to access anger and also grief. And so these two parts, this goodbye letter, is a great thing to write out, spend time on it, spend a few days adding to it, and then read it out loud. Ideally, if you can read it out loud to someone, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. I as you were talking, I'm just so intrigued by this. I can't wait to do some goodbye letters for some old corporate world stuff.
Mm,
That would be so amazing. But I thought of you as that single mother going to school, now living with her mother. And I'm wondering for the women who might be going through this or about to go through it, what that might look like, because I could imagine myself being so angry after being tired of working, going to school, picking up the kids, coming home, having to do the dishes, all the things that you have to do, right? That anger, I would love to call it rage, if you will. I'm sure would live deep inside me somewhere of having to do all the things. And so, how can people meet themselves in that moment, and what can they do to really not only embrace it, because I think we need to sit in the mess. When we sit in the mess, we can get so much clarity. But what can we do to not only honor those feelings, but then also shift them as well?
right. That's a great question. And I think that it's important to access and give word, verbalize what those feelings of rage or anger are, because I'm guessing they're pretty valid. And it would make a lot of sense if we were talking to a best friend who was going through that same situation, we would be able to validate and have compassion for the fact that, of course, you're angry because you're having to do all of these things. And so, and also bringing, let's say that this person is the one who made the choice to leave the situation. I think also looking at number one, yes, there's a lot of anger and this feels really unfair. And also, you made this choice and it's temporary. And we just haven't gotten to the gains yet. And so it's a lot of hard work in this difficult period of time. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel that's going to bring more peace. And what I've noticed is when we're in the chaos of all of that, sometimes we're so busy that we're just tired and it's hard to it's hard to access some of that anger because we're in survival mode. And so I think it's important, and I think I said this in my article, but it's important to take, even if it's 5 minutes in the car, to ask ourselves, what am I feeling? Does that make sense that I'm feeling this? Validate yourself. Yes, get that out. Listen to angry music if you need to, and just understand, of course, you're angry. It's fine. And also taking responsibility again and dispersing some responsibility. Okay, it's an unfortunate situation, and also it's not forever. I've learned a lot from this. I continue to learn from it, and I want to do better next time.
Mm. I love this. And I want to say two things before I forget. Number one, somebody said to me one time, every time you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, take some deep breaths. They're
Hmm.
always good reminders to pause and come back to the present moment. So that's one good way when you said take some deep breaths. That was something that I've always remembered. And then the second thing is I love that you said the word temporary. It is a word that we use so frequently in our language, but it didn't have true deep meaning until my best friend, who's a marriage and family therapist, said to me one time, "But this is temporary." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it is. Whatever I'm going through," she always says, "it's temporary. This shall pass too." And
Yes.
that's something that we have to keep coming back to. It's whatever we're going through in this moment, whether that's the anger or the rage or the forgiveness that we need to embrace or the compassion or the forgetting that we want to do. It's temporary, right? You're no longer in school, you're no longer living with your mom. You're past all of that now, right? So temporary is such a beautiful word. So thank you for saying that today.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think too, Nicole, just to know. So if I work with a lot of people who are on the cusp and trying to figure out, do I want to leave this situation or this relationship? And I think going into it, I tell people, you're going to be in some chaos for a temporary period of time. And also knowing that ahead of time and what you can do during that chaotic period to get to the other side, know that it's going to be better because it's going to be on your terms. You're creating this.
Yeah.
I think it just gives a lot of hope.
It does give a lot of hope. And one of the things that gives me hope too, because I used to love status quo, like the more status quo it
Hmm.
was, the safer I felt. Now I actually get excited when there's chaos because I think of it like the snow globe, right? You shake it all up, there's all this chaos, and then everything settles and there's this calm, right? And everything's in a new place. So I think of it as an energy exchange, right? The chaos is just shifting energy to move things out of my way to create an open path for what's actually aligned for me. And I'm sure you could say the same thing now, right? After all this chaos, you're on the path that feels more aligned, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. And I'm so glad it's, if I could go back and talk to these different pieces of me at these different parts of my timeline, I would just keep championing that part of me and say that, look, you've made it to a very beautiful, peaceful spot. And that's because you had to make some hard decisions. So don't give up on yourself and your happiness and your peace. It really means a lot. And you can do it.
Yes, and resiliency. We are so
Mm.
much more resilient than we believe in. So trust in yourself, forgive and forget not only others, but yourself, right? Yes, I think we don't do that enough. Oh, this has just been such a beautiful conversation. And I feel so lucky to have people like you in our community to really champion when people are having those hard times because not a lot of people want to talk about them, right? They just want to talk about the good stuff. It's kind of like social media. They only post the perfect picture of themselves, and there's all this other stuff going on behind the scenes, right? And we're trying to bring to the forefront of our world and of our healing these I don't want to necessarily call them ugly parts, but less desirable parts, if you will, of our healing journey so that we can get to a new place of beauty and light and a clearer path for ourselves.
So, so true. And I think when you mention social media, I find it really important to share real parts and not just this idea that I'm perfect because I'm a counselor. I share pieces that I hope reach people and help them understand I'm real too. And we've all gone through stuff. None of us are showing up perfect. So I think it's important to share those pieces.
It is wonderful. Okay, so if you want to connect with Jennifer, she is in our community, community.sovereign-magazine.com. All of her details of how to connect with her on her website and socials will be in our show notes. So don't you worry, and definitely go read her article. It's so real, it's so raw. There's lots more to come from her in the coming months, and we are just so delighted to have you around. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's been beautiful to be part of this community.
Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another soul-led entrepreneur here to help you step into your sovereign self. Subscribe to our magazine and podcast and join our global community for all the magic. Details to connect with today's guest or join the movement are in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. It helps us reach our goal of guiding 5 million women to self-sovereignty.